what are the what are the challenges that the brands will face then with their digital transformation, particularly when they're integrating new technologies, things that they haven't dealt with before? I'll chuck that over to you, Sam.
For me, I look at it a bit like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the triangle, and it's about getting the basics right and getting the foundations of your strategy right. If you recall, at the bottom of the triangle, it's food and shelter, and at the top is creativity and spontaneity, and then you go through self-esteem and friendships, and as you build up, and getting those basics right in terms of where e-commerce sits in your strategy, where your relationships are between direct consumer and marketplace strategy, which in my experience, brands tend to do one or the other well, and not necessarily both. And the rise of marketplaces, which marketplaces tend to be seen as the sort of slightly murky shelf at the end of the corridor, if you like, where we stick product. But we all know Amazon is no slouch, and they are standing up all sorts of new toys and widgets and methods of brand engagement that allow you to build brand equity in marketplaces. So getting that relationship between D2C and marketplace is key. There was a lot of new payment regulations across UK and EU particularly, which are making conversions more challenging. There's your international strategy, which has opened up through COVID. What does that mean? Can you sell abroad in terms of growing market share? The general Kool-Aid on marketing these days is more customers is more important than retaining existing customers, which is a challenge to receive wisdom over the years. And then getting your returns balance right. I used to work for a man who I'm not going to use the word he used, but he called out the free returns and free delivery as the two worst things you can possibly do. I'll say he used it much more pejoratively than that. But not everybody agrees with that. And a lot of customers demand free returns, etc. So getting that balance right is really important in your strategy. So before we get into AI and blockchain and all of that wonderful stuff, there's a lot of basics to get right.
Wow. So you're not going to tell us to build a metaverse then?
Not today.
Just to build on that, I think what Sam said is absolutely right. So I'm going to speak very normatively now, and obviously with a bit of tongue in cheek. But in the old days, lean startup, world of agile, you built an app, you trafficked it, you build it and hope it will come. And that was kind of the only game in town from an e-commerce point of view. You put in a load of paid media and it worked or it didn't. I think to Sam's point, now there's a huge amount more complexity in the e-commerce environment. So there are marketplaces, there is Amazon, there is eBay, there are overseas marketplaces that operate out of different markets. There are your owned channels, there are stores. So actually, you've got to think about from a distribution and investment point of view, where to place those digital bets. That might be around building APIs and systems that enable you to integrate into other marketplaces. It might be about making investments, as we plan to do next year, in Tells, which improves the omnichannel experience in our own ecosystem. And so to get to that sense of where to best place our investments, you really do need to interrogate kind of from a strategic point of view, what's our challenge? Eyeballs, conversion, repeats, but then also the profitability of each of those channels, because those two things, the challenge and the profitability, will then dictate where the returns lie, and they're not obviously always the same thing. So I do think, to Sam's point, the proliferation of marketplaces and also kind of the increasing, I guess, complexity of consumer behaviour in the e-commerce space and omni space means that you've got to be a lot more aware about where you're placing all of your investment, but particularly your digital ones.